What up, YouTube? This is Steven Talber. This is TalbyReacts. So today I want to talk about Nintendo. So over the weekend Nintendo had their quarterly report. Nintendo's really good about talking about numbers and giving really interesting statistics and kind of telling kind of their the quarterly report is where Nintendo is usually where you tell your investors why you're going to invest, why you should keep supporting kind of that per se company. In this case, it was Nintendo. And so pretty much what we got was some really good figures to kind of talk about and kind of figure out. And so they first said one, the Wii U has sold 12 million, around 12 million units. And so I got to looking kind of over just numbers in general, kind of comparing and figure out how that is doing compared to like past generations and stuff like that. It's definitely not doing well. I think as everybody on the internet knows and everybody knows overall, Nintendo is not in a good place right now. It's terrible. Um, and so like kind of looking at the Wii U sales, like it's interesting. Like the next set of systems, we have the Master System, the second Master System sold 14 million units, which is interesting. I did not know that. The next system above that, I believe, is I think it's like the Xbox. The GameCube is at like 21 million units, and then the Xbox is at 24 million units. And so yeah, so they're definitely not selling a ton of units, and this is not surprising. Although, what's interesting about their kind of the Wii U overall right now is if you look at kind of the attach rate, which is how long per unit. Like you look at the attach rate is like how many people bought this game that bought the like it's really high. Like if you look at games like Mario Kart, which is a very beloved series in Nintendo, the attach rate they sold 7 million units, which is crazy. Like that's legitimately half of like the Wii U's entire actual numbers, which is that is an ungodly like number. Like you don't see 50% anywhere. There's probably never been really a PlayStation game that's been like that. PlayStation or even Xbox game. There may be if you look at maybe Uncharted or even maybe Halos, but probably not. So like it was like, and then the other interesting numbers that were really talked about was like Splatoon, like it sold 4 million units. Um, and then like Mario Maker sold probably I think additional like 3 million units. And so like they're like if you think about those, that's like that's a third right there. There's a fourth right there. So like yeah, they're really like the attach rates are incredible. And so like whoever all the people that love Nintendo are very loyal to them, and they really want the best games to be on that system. And so it's real interesting to think about. I just like looking at numbers. They kind of give you kind of a clearer picture of like what is Nintendo doing. I think what was probably the most interesting of all these numbers was the fact that they finally kind of revealed the Amiibo, the Amiibo figurines. These are figurines you could put on your Wii U that get you like certain things, and also they're kind of collectibles, kind of like the Star Wars, kind of the Disney Infinity type toys and stuff like that. And it was said that those sold 20 million units. So to kind of put it in retrospect, they've sold eight more million units than a Wii U. Okay, so which is not surprising because if you think about it, like the 3DS I think is sold up to like 52 million. So, but I think one of the most interesting points about like that the Amiibos have sold 20 million units is what's interesting about it is one thing is Disney's brand overall is still a really good brand. I think like everybody who wants like a video game type toys wants Nintendo. I think Nintendo is still thought as the Disney of as the Disney of video games, and we could see that. And so I think what's interesting is just thinking about the future is like if they're front end with like developing consoles and stuff like that fails, it would be very much. I think it's a very worthwhile thing that if they immediately got into selling games on on the PlayStation Network or on the Microsoft per se, like I think they would do bonkers. Like they would do really well. I think honestly, like the Amiibos almost for show. Like this is what could also possibly happen on these other consoles. Like they would definitely become like the number one like sales like overall for games. Like they would become the number one publisher, kicking out very much notable. Like they still have the highest royalties, and so that's really I think that's a really interesting point to make in terms of kind of Nintendo overall and kind of where they're going. I think which is real interesting. One of the most interesting things about the Amiibo numbers was the fact that Splatoon in Japan was like the Splatoon girl was the number one Amiibo, followed by the squid of the Splatoon guy. It was the number third Amiibo in Japan. So it's interesting. So it's cool to see their new franchises really do really well, and they're really beloved. I think if I'm not mistaken, Link was number one in North America, and I'm forgetting who it was number one in Europe. But it's really interesting to see even some of their new series have a lot of good success with the Amiibos, which a lot of people, even myself, was like, "Why are you producing a Splatoon Amiibo?" But I think it's really great. Now I think about it, it's really good advertising and stuff like that. So interesting stuff. I think one of the most interesting tidbits that came out of like this quarterly meeting was the fact that that they're considering doing VR, which is crazy to think about. If you remember, like an E3 around E3, like there was a really interesting Nintendo article about Nintendo not really caring about VR at all. Like they almost saw it as a waste, and it's really interesting that in the course of about 6 7 months, Nintendo has almost completely flipped their mind about VR. Like they're now considering the possibilities, which makes sense for most because most game console makers, Microsoft is considering getting in the fray with augmented virtuality and also with also helping out Valve's the Oculus Rift per se. I think Oculus Rift is very much funded by um, very much funded by Microsoft, and we of course know PlayStation. PlayStation has PlayStation Go. And so I think it's really interesting that they are considering it. And they've had a long tenure. They had the Virtual Boy, one of the first VR headsets, even though it was probably not should have been never done in the first place. But it was one of the first one of the first tries into VR. And so I find that very fascinating. Will it prolong Nintendo? I don't know. It will be interesting to see what they do with it. Other interesting notes is we'll hear more about supposedly their second mobile phone game coming up at GDC. I think kind of the final notes, just to kind of close this Nintendo future type something. 2016 is a big month for Nintendo. For what we have already know is like Nintendo has to show up at E3. Like that E3 press conference has to be clutch, almost to extraordinary amounts. We know that Nintendo will probably show the NX, hopefully there. It remains to be seen. Will we see, will the portable will the portable NX be launched in like kind of in the winter of 2016, and also maybe many more things. Will we see Zelda, the Zelda Wii U game that we got promised, and some real interesting type of stuff. It's exciting. I think it's definitely going to be one of the most interesting storylines to watch coming up in the near future. And so, yeah, and so that's kind of what I really wanted to talk about is kind of their future, kind of where they're going. I find it just fascinating that Amiibo sales beat out the Wii overall. and it's not surprising, but I think it's really interesting to kind of look at these sales and kind of think, where are they moving, where are they going? Guys, what are your thoughts? These are kind of my Talby wonders. Where do you see the Wii? Like, where do you see Nintendo going in 2016? What is the end of the Wii U as we know it? Will we see Zelda for the Wii U on Nintendo on the Wii U? And kind of, what do you think about the NX? What do you see about the future of the NX? These are all really great questions. These are things I wonder myself. Um, Guys, I thank you for watching this video. I hope you like this video about me talking about Nintendo. I hope you have a great day. Bye.